John Dewey's words, the task of the teacher is to keep alive the sacred spark of wonder and to fan the flame that already glows, to protect the spirit of inquiry, to keep it from becoming blasé from overexcitement, wooden from routine, fossilized through dogmatic instruction, or dissipated by random exercise upon trivial things. So how are we doing with that? How brightly does the flame of inquiry burn in our students? Or how fossilized has it become from exercises upon trivial things? Is the way we assess learning really connected in any way to the innovation, teamwork, and deep learning that the world requires? Or are we like farmers who weigh our chickens every day and never feed them? So I thought this: what if we gave them the microphone? What if we listened to our students in the ways that business innovators learn about the needs of those they serve? That is how we began the experiment called the Graham Innovation Scholars. And now Billy wants to tell us what he and his fellow students think about education. I'll leave you with this as context.
To know and how one learns those things has changed dramatically in our technological age, but our education system has changed very little. Therein lies the problem. We need to acknowledge that being literate for today's world requires multiple kinds of learning. We continue to process new and different types of minds as if along an assembly line, and we continue to assess learning based on some single, outmoded ideal of what it means to be the smart kid. But our habits of mind are all different, and to allow students to really grow, we need to inspire creative thinking and creative confidence. We talk about individuality, and then we standardize learning methods despite knowing that colleges and careers value innovative thinking. When an individual does not flourish in such a system, two things happen. They become discouraged, and we call them failures, before they reach 18 years old, often earlier. We all know these things deep down, right? We all complain about the current system. We complain that teachers need to teach and that standardized testing isn't working and that students don't care. But do we really know why apathy takes hold of one's fearless young minds? Our goal is to find better ways to inspire learning. So what are we finding? We know that when we try and fail, we also learn, ask any scientist. But what empathy interviews are showing us is that we are inadvertently telling students and their teachers to avoid risk-taking. And we are doing this in the service of a curriculum based on uniformity. Empathy interviews have helped us learn about what students really think. For example, we heard from a second grader who told us that he had been bored in math class because he already knew the material. So he worked ahead. When he did, his teacher was upset with him. In doing so, likely without even knowing it, she had inadvertently discouraged his desire to take on tougher concepts on his own. We also heard from a student whose recess period had been shortened to just 15 minutes, so more work could be accomplished. But does limiting play really create more or deeper learning? I saw a different spark when the student proudly told us that one day he was able to persuade his teacher to get an extra 10 minutes. We need to think more about how important playtime is for students to learn social interactions and creativity. Once we collect these insights, we can move through the rest of the design thinking process. Our next step will be to use a student's points of view to define key problems. What is lost when a student is discouraged from working ahead? What happens when play and social interaction is restricted? These are things we don't really know yet. Human-centered discoveries like this will help us better understand how students learn. We can then ideate. In this part of the process, we address the problems we have defined and build upon the needs of students we have discovered in empathy interviews. In this stage, we brainstorm as many ideas as we can for making the experience of learning match a students' needs and desires. We want to make learning the joy it should be. We want it to be a delight. And once we think we find a big breakthrough idea, we can craft a prototype to run through with a sample of students and gather their feedback on what we've come up with before we make an attempt at a final solution. This way, we can be adaptive and see what needs to be tweaked. We can make sure that it's suitable to the needs of the students and that real learning is taking place in the classroom. This is how we use human-centered assessment. Then when the prototype seems to be working, we can test a more refined version. The test phase will allow us to gauge whether we are seeing, on a larger scale, the kinds of improvements predicted in our prototype. For this phase, we will need to find a population of teachers and students who are willing to innovate with us. This work can help teachers recall that the right way to teach is simply a projection of how students actually learn, to recall that students are individuals and that their needs change, and that not every student will learn in the exact way that their teachers did. Human-centered design, applied to education, can provide those insights about what students really need to be inspired and so to learn. But in order for this to work, we need cooperation from parents and educators and support for students themselves. We need others to believe that as students of innovation, the Graham Scholars can help design extraordinary lives for others too. While experiencing these ineffective methods as students, many of us felt kicked aside. And now as college students, we feel motivated to help future students. All of us believe that education is the key to success, but we need to do more than believe. We need to question ourselves whether we are actually listening to our students. Design thinking can help us do that. This human-centered approach to education can help us understand what our students need, just as it helps businesses to understand what customers need. We hope educators will listen to what we find.